When we look at what makes games fun to play, what comes to most people's mind is a concept commonly known as game feel. Game feel is a core pillar of game design that says that any player input should be rewarded with some sort of feedback. Player put in action, they get satisfying reaction in return. Most types of game feel focus on audio and visual feedback, and if it's well designed, it's not something you're likely to notice while playing, even though you will definitely notice if it's missing. Game feel also sets the tone of a game. Here's a demo from Nicolae Berbece's talk on the subject.
I've sent some gameplay footage to some sound designers, and I asked them to do sound effects without any context. I just gave them a piece of footage without any sound in it. So this is how it sounds. Right, so you can see how important sound effects are.
As you can see, even simple changes will lead to the game feeling drastically different, so you should realize by now how important this is for any game designer to understand. And as an aspiring game designer, understand it, I did. I searched all across the GDC Vault and every game's talk channel to find the best way to incorporate game feel for my own game, and what I found was actually kind of worthless. See, my game is part rhythm game, and every video on this subject, good though they may be, focused entirely on action-oriented games. Like, you really expect me to add screen shake to this? I mean I could, but that just doesn't really feel right, does it? So, what's an aspiring game designer like me to do other than to look to other games and blatantly rip them off? And don't worry, this video won't be a devlog, that's coming next. It's more so an analysis of why some of my favorites feel so good to play. I figure with discussions of game feel being so limited to the action genre, it would be nice talking about it in some other games for a change, because every game you've played has game feel, and as you'll see, these overlooked games do game feel really well. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Part 1, Deemo. It's pretty obvious that the tone or aesthetic of your game in some way dictates how you design the game feel around it. And Deemo is a game that is about pianos, so naturally it feels like a piano to play. This then begs the question, why does Deemo feel like you're playing a piano? So to understand why Deemo is like this, we first have to understand how beat maps are designed. A beat map can be thought of like a level in a rhythm game and dictates when, where, and what types of notes spawn. There are only two types of notes in Deemo, the white keys and the golden keys. The white keys simulate when an individual note is pressed, while golden keys simulate when notes are held. Deemo places these white and golden keys in accordance with one voice in the beat map, usually either the piano or the synthetic keyboard, and maps tend to be simplified recreations of that voice as sheet music, with maybe a little bit of spice added into them, just for fun. And here's where the first biggest strength of Deemo and all rhythm games comes in. If you design a beat map around the player hitting notes to a beat, and the beat is something the player can hear, then you've already designed audio feedback for the player. Now, those of you who have played Deemo might be saying, but Adrian, these games have hit sounds. Aren't the hit sounds the audio feedback and not the music? Well, you're wrong. While these games do have hit sounds, it's almost always better to turn them off because the sounds add an extra layer of feedback that distracts you more than anything, which is just an example of bad game feel in action. Honestly, I'm convinced the devs added them in either for the easier maps where not every beat would have a hit, or because it was the cool thing to do at the time. I'm getting off topic though. So we know Deemo works from an audio feedback standpoint because you are literally tapping notes at the same time piano notes are being played. But what about the visual component? Does Deemo even have a visual component? Yes, but it's very subtle as to not distract you too much when there are a billion notes on the screen. Another common technique rhythm games do, by the way. You're either going to miss it completely if you tap it too early or too late, or you'll hit it frame perfect and it'll be charming. These are all, of course, indicated by a small flash of light and then the note fading quickly, giving you the feedback of which hit you got and also telling you how not charming your note was. And that's all there is to the visual feedback. Deemo is a pretty simple game after all. But then there's the note about the small window where you're able to hit notes. On one hand, increasing Deemo's difficulty because it demands more perfection than the next games I'll be talking about, while on the other giving the game a more precise feel. And if you've ever played a piano, you know that precision is important to making the music sound good, and messing up the timing even slightly will lead to it sounding very bad very quickly. The only other thing I'll mention is that I find the backgrounds of each beat map to be really cute. because it's literally playing the sheet music off the song you're playing. But aside from that, there isn't really anything else worth mentioning about Deemo's game feel. It's simple, it's effective, and it works. But it's not very dynamic, is it? What would a hyper-dynamic rhythm game even look like? How would its game feel be different than Deemo's? Part 2. Lanota. Lanota's developers really thought, what if you had Deemo, but it was on a circle, with variable beat movement speeds, and also the beat map moved around a lot? Lanota is one of those games that really feels great to play, and each song is basically its own self-contained story, which makes sense. Lanota wanted to focus on story much more than Deemo did, so why not go the extra step to ensure that by baking it into the beat maps themselves? Like, this game literally has boss songs. It really tried on the story aspects, and I do think it succeeded in a lot of ways. Lanota's dynamism takes mostly from more action-oriented games, especially when it comes to the camera. As you've no doubt noticed, the beat map itself tends to dance around the screen in accordance with the music, and even certain beats can be flicked to drag it in certain directions. And all of this unequivocally feels great. It really is something that could have only been achieved using the circular mapping like they did, and I'm really happy that they made the most of it. These dynamic effects combined with the background images that gradually regain color as you play through the song gives you a beat map with a personality. And that's something that's missing from Deemo, where all the maps look exactly the same. Like, I could probably do a full analysis of individual maps if that wouldn't be extremely boring to watch after the 5th, and here the sliders are moving along with the electronic rift. Isn't that so poggers? But Lanota is also the game on this list that I played the least, and that's because while it does succeed in a lot of places, it can also be a bit much. The thing that can usually be the most hit or miss is the variable movement speed of the beats, something that is good for when you need to emphasize certain moments in the song, but also something that interrupts the flow of the map itself. Flow in games is super important to achieve, and if you're not aware of flow, it's basically that state when you're playing a game, but you feel so concentrated or immersed in it that you forget that you're playing, all the while acting like you just took some performance-enhancing drug that makes you a god at video games. Rhythm games are some of the masters of achieving flow really quickly, and it's for that reason why I personally enjoy playing them a lot. So when I see something like this that interrupts that flow state, I think it's cool, but it does want to make me play this specific map less. And when a lot of the maps in Lanota use this technique, I usually end up playing a different game instead. Plus, the way the different beat types are set up makes the game only really work best when it's being used for electronic or vocal music, which I do enjoy, but it does limit what I can play when I'm in certain moods. So instead, the game that I usually go to first is the one that takes the best aspects of both Deemo and Lanota, combining them into one game that is, in my opinion, a true masterpiece. Part 3. Voez. So, Voez is the most perfect rhythm game that I've ever played. Mechanically, it works exactly the same as Deemo, just with an added right and left swipe, and it's a little bit more forgiving with hits in general. Everything I said about Deemo's beat maps applies here, but it's also much more dynamic than Deemo because of these things called tracks. Tracks are what beats arrive on, and a beat will always travel at a constant speed down a track, so your flow is not going to be interrupted like it is in Lanota. But tracks in Voez aren't static. They're actually really highly dynamic, though in a different way than Lanota. Where Lanota tells a story using its camera, Voez tells a story by modifying track color, movement, size, and count. Since beatmap creators are able to easily modify all these variables at will, you can create any feeling you want, from a falling star effect, to enforcing and breaking symmetry, to spammy nonsense. The possibilities are endless, and no two maps will ever really feel the same to play. Plus, the visual effects have an added bonus of subtly guiding your eyes and hands to the next beat being played. This map even uses red and blue backgrounds to prime you into swiping left and right before you can't process it when This isn't even mentioning how the setup is so simple that it works for legitimately any song you can think of. Like, the tutorial song has a guitar, vocalist, and piano in it, and depending on what part of the song you're at, the beat map is focusing on a completely different voice. Get it? But in all seriousness, the designers of the beat maps are able to bring out the strengths of each song because of how adaptable the system is to any type of music. It's not too uncommon that a song seamlessly transitions between multiple voices of music through the use of distinct visual effects, and sometimes it even has you focus on two separate voices at the same time if it's really clever. And I could go on about Voez, but each map is so individualized that it's difficult to talk about the strengths of each one, since what I would say would almost exclusively apply to that one map and that one map alone. It's definitely one of the strengths that Voez has over the other two. Like, could Deemo or Lanota make something that uses fast-paced tapping before cutting abruptly to focus on the more slower drum beat? Well, maybe. but it would require much more thought and insight on the designer's part than making the same thing in voice, since the systems of Deemo and Lanota don't accommodate that style of design too well. And I should remind you that mechanically, all three of these games are almost exactly the same, with a few minor differences here and there. The biggest thing that's changed between the games is how they feel, and that right there is the importance of game feel. Deemo, Lanota, and Voez are all three rhythm games that I really love and enjoy playing a lot. If you want to get them, all of them are available on the Switch and mobile devices, and Deemo is also available on the PS Vita if you prefer. Voez is actually free to play on mobile and has a lot of songs on weekly rotation, so there's no excuse for you to not try it out and see how great it is. If anything, you could use the mobile version as a free trial if you have a Switch, since the Switch version gives you access to all the songs for around half of what it would cost to unlock them all on mobile. All three games have their strengths and weaknesses, of course, and I do love all of them for different reasons. Deemo is a very focused experience. It makes you concentrate on exactly one voice of the song while expecting high levels of precision. It can be a difficult game, even when not a lot is happening visually, because the mechanics and feel of the game just carries it the entire way through. Lanota is more of a story experience and feels great when you're playing through the maps like it's an adventure, but the overbearing visual effects can make some of the maps annoying to replay. Plus, there isn't too much diversity amongst the music styles. That being said, though, certain maps I keep coming back to because of how much I love them, because they're just that good at telling the stories of their songs. And Voez is perfect in all aspects. There isn't really too much I can criticize about it other than maybe some maps get a little bit spammy. Plus, like I said, it's free and you should go play it. Like, what are you waiting for? Go play it now. Anyways, this has been Adrian. Like, comment, subscribe if you feel like it. My first devlog is coming soon, so watch out for that. Remember that I love you, especially Andy, and peace out.